Hi, this video is being recorded on Friday, January 24th, so the information here might be, you might need to check to make sure it's still up to date. The purpose of the video is to provide a quick high-level overview of the solar facility that has been proposed for a 55-plus acre plot of land between the Back River feeding into Lake Attitash and the Meadowbrook that flows out of Lake Attitash and Tuxbury Pond. Um, this site is very close to and upstream of Amesbury's drinking water filtration plant, which is over here. It's also very close to the water sources that the Merrimack drinking water filtration plant draws from over here. Um, you might be watching this on a social media platform, but the video is actually stored on YouTube. If you'd like to share this presentation to your friends or other people that are interested in this, please do so. You can view the video on YouTube, click the share button with the little arrow pointing to the right, and then copy the link that pops up and paste that link into your social media post, email, or text message. A quick disclaimer, I've tried my best to keep my own personal opinions and ideas out of this script, but I'm going to show you a series of documents that anyone could have assembled from publicly available sources. You can feel free to pause the video and read the relevant details on the screen, and I plan to update the video's detail pages to include footnotes to everything that I'm speaking about. You may contact me on YouTube comments if you have any questions or concerns, or you have any details or corrections. If you're making corrections, it would be helpful if you are able to include the video timestamp of the relevant section. Okay, let's jump right in. So the site is right here in this wooded area. This is 495, Interstate 495. This is Route 110. This is Kimball Road, which runs up straight through here. And so this is the Back River, Lake Attitash, the Meadowbrook, Tuxbury Pond, and water filtration plant. Um, so moving forward, this is just an overview of what we're going to cover in this video. This is Lake Attitash looking north and west slightly, and this is the relevant area that we're talking about. It's between these water bodies um, wedged in there. This is a close-up look at the area from a drone photo, and this is what it looks like in the winter. So as you can see, the difference between the summer and the winter, these are a lot of deciduous trees that flower each spring and soak up a lot of moisture, soak up a lot of rainwater, and protect the whole entire area. This is an overhead view. This is the area that we're talking about. This is Birch Meadow Road. This is Kimball Road. And this over here is Bear Hill Road. And so basically what they want to do is knock in 35 plus acres of land, right, of trees right here to build the solar park. This is a topographical map, and as you can see from these lines, it's very hilly all around the area, and there is a hill that extends 60 feet up above the height of the lake. So you can't really notice it because the trees are there right now, but it is 50 feet, 60 feet tall in the center of the property where they want to put the solar panels. This is an old-timey map. It's very hard to read this blueprint, but I just wanted to point out that the family that owns the property right now, the Vynorius family, they've lived in this area right here. They've had roots in this area for many generations. The Butlins lived there in well before 1912. And this property here where they want to build the solar park was owned by Roy Locke, and they've come to purchase up all of this area here. Moving forward, I just want to say that Wayne Vynorius is the person who accumulated all of the land. His mother grew up on the property here, and the relatives are still located in the area. William W. Vynorius and Mary Lou Vynorius ostensibly control the property and are the trustees to the estate. And this gold border shows exactly all of the plots together. So it's about 155 acres. And what they want to use is this 100-acre plot and this 15-acre plot and combine them and put the solar park right here. Just a little history of the area. Initially, Wayne Vynorius had purchased the area to protect the Meadowbrook airfield that his uncle Albert had laid out in the 1940s. And initially, he wanted to do a 12-house lot subdivision. And then that got scrapped because it wasn't approved. So then there was going to be a plan for 268 units of condos that also got scrapped, even though they were trying to do it under Chapter 40B. I just wanted to say this because this went on for many, many years, and it just basically the town fought it, and eventually things stopped. And the reason why things stopped is sadly, Wayne Vynorius had passed away in 2010. So nothing more went on with the property for a long time. And now I'm just going to jump straight into how the water flows through the area. Our drinking water here in Amesbury, it goes through a filtration plant, but it starts way up here in Kingston, New Hampshire, and half of it travels along the Powell. It goes into the Powell Pond and through the Powell River and travels that way. And the rest of it travels southward in through Newton and comes down through the back river, through Lake Attitash, the Meadowbrook Pond. So basically, the whole entire water flow travels all through that area, and it is a very high water table, and it's all interconnected. So the plans to knock down and decimate and clear cut all of these acres of trees has a definite possible effect on the drinking water. Again, here's a topographical map. This is where Merrimack draws out their pumping. They pump out their drinking water up here, and Amesbury has a water filtration plant over here, and it's after all of the water has traveled past all of this area. So that's the risk there, the drinking water. Also, I just wanted to point out that again, this hill in the center of the property. So rainwater that lands on the top of the hill is either going to travel north, northeastward towards the Meadowbrook, or southwest towards the back river. And there's going to be some stormwater control systems, but there's no way to protect it entirely. So I just wanted to show you here that Lake Attitash is a very shallow lake. And so any sort of soil infiltration or any sort of extra materials entering into the Lake Attitash could be catastrophic. So again, nothing went on until May of 2021. A company called Renewable Energy International got into contract with the Vynorius family to create an interconnection contract with the ISO New England, who runs the power grid for all of the Northeast. They agreed to create this 4.99 megawatt solar plant and battery array and connect it to the West Amesbury substation. And this is just some more details saying that it got approved. This is the West Amesbury substation. I'm just going to show you where it is in just a moment, but they needed a way to get the power out of this field and into the electrical grid. So they went in and made a contract with Richard and Patricia Nyhan to use their property at 25 Birch Meadow Road to create a gravel road and run the electrical lines out of the field and connect it into the electrical grid. So that's the plan. This is the Nyhan's property right here on Birch Meadow Road. Again, the power would be collected from the solar panels over here, would travel down Kimball Road and across 110, all the way down over 495 to the West Amesbury substation. And here I'm just showing you that there are existing solar facilities. There's 2 solar facilities. They're both on top of capped landfills. So there were solid waste landfills that were capped, and then companies came in. One company came in, and then the city also created this one. So there already are solar facilities in Amesbury and generate quite a bit of electricity. It all goes into this West Amesbury substation. and that's how it gets into the grid. And these are in an industrial zoned area. So that's the problem. Currently, large solar facilities are restricted only to the renewable energy development district, the RED. And so in order for this idea to create a solar field elsewhere, there have to be a zoning ordinance created. So again, this is where the power would come out of the field and onto Birch Meadow Road. It's a sharp right turn that trucks would have to take in order to enter the property. It would have to go straight up into the woods and around the back of the houses on Birch Meadow Road and up to access um, the, the area. There are two other ways into that area. On Kimball Road, there's Meadowbrook Road near the New Hampshire border, and Bear Hill Road, also near the New Hampshire border on the Merrimack side. There is a dirt road that goes all the way straight across the top of the property. Um, the planning board was contacted by Syncarpha, the company that purchased the idea for the solar farm from Renewable Energy International, and the planning board decided that there should be a community meeting at the Council on Aging cafeteria. So they held a meeting, and they invited only the neighbors who almost directly abut the property. Um, those of us who live in the area went and received their presentation. And the Lake Attitash Association also tried to invite as many people around Lake Attitash to attend the meeting as well. The presentation was it was a lot of marketing material mostly. This is a slide from that presentation that they um, that they presented. And then Lake Attitash Association drafted a letter showing all of their concerns after that meeting, mostly because the Lake Attitash Association is concerned with protecting the water quality inside of the lake, which also affects our drinking water quality. They focused all of their concerns on runoff and how it could affect harmful algae blooms and so on. And so that was their concerns. And then there was the same presentation was given to the Amesbury Planning Board on June 12th of 2023. And it was a pre-application process where they presented the same basic materials for about 20 minutes. And then the planning board had about 23 minutes of questions and concerns. And each one of the members of the planning board raised their specific issues. And there was a little bit of discussion about it. But there was no actual plan in place to move forward. So the neighbors who live on Birch Meadow Road got together and we created a letter that we sent to everyone in the city of Amesbury government outlining all of our issues related to this idea. And we sent that off, and we had cited notations to actual studies highlighting all of the dangers that were involved. So then the next step was in December, Nick Cracknell at the Technical Review Committee indicated that there needed to be a zoning amendment to actually move this forward. And so the mayor introduced a bill that would expand this renewable energy development overlay district, the RED, to make the changes to allow for this project to move forward. And I'm not going to read off all of these items, but they included an actual map showing exactly where they wanted to create this solar field outside of the industrial zone and outside of the REDD, so expanding it. So then the city council did a first reading. They've referred it out to a couple of subcommittees, the Planning and Development Subcommittee and the Ordinances and Administration, and they referred it to the Open Spaces and Natural Resources and Trails Committee and the Planning Board. They referred it back out to them. for each of them to come back to review this bill and provide their input. And each of them were supposed to provide either approve this measure or reject it, and provide their justification for doing so. Um, and then Syncarpha provided another informational meeting and a public meeting on August 5th, and then presented the same information back to the planning board at their next meeting. Um, and it had a little bit of more information, but generally speaking, everything was still pretty much marketing materials. Um, it didn't have a lot of actual drawings or any kind of engineering plans or anything, because those were still in development. And um, and then at this meeting it was definitely brought up that the Syncarpha could go ahead and um, move forward and force this through under the Dover Amendment. And this is just a little side trip. The Dover Amendment is a Massachusetts law that the town of Dover wanted to limit the construction of an, educational facilities like schools in certain ways, and the Massachusetts state legislature in 1950 said you couldn't do that. And over time, this thing has become a multi-headed hydra, and it started out with very simple things like the ability to override zoning laws to create a group home for people with disabilities, or to put a handicap ramp on your house, and now it's morphed into, and they have included preventing municipalities from unreasonably regulating solar energy systems. And it exempts solar installations from most zoning regulations. However, the cities and communities can regulate to protect, and this is the very important part, to protect the public's health, safety, and welfare. And so that is basically what we're up against. We need to prove that this plan would endanger the public's health, safety, and welfare. Now, you could say that the 446 households that live on the 20 streets that live around the lake and Meadowbrook, who have an assessed value of their land of more than $240 million worth of land, might outweigh the harm that would come to each of our property valuations if the visual blight from this went forward, or the damage to the land, to the water, to our drinking water, etc., might be harmed, might outweigh the $3 million worth of its mostly unimproved land. And actually, when you just look at just the land that's related to this project, it's only assessed at $408,000. You could say, our rights outweigh theirs, but that won't really probably survive, because it's not health, safety, public's health, safety, and public welfare. So, and also the Syncarpha will not be paying property taxes anyway, because they'll be paying payments in lieu of taxes, because solar energy and wind power systems don't pay property taxes. They don't. They pay payments in lieu of taxes. And no one knows publicly how much the city could possibly earn from this pilot program. That still remains to be seen. So I'm just going to show you the visual blight that could be possible. This was taken from, this viewpoint is on Lakeshore Drive on the southern end of Lake Attitash, and you can see this is the area that we're talking about. It's a hilly area with trees all covering it, and this would be all cut down, and there would be solar panels up here. It remains to be seen. And the reason why I'm bringing up the visual blight is when you think of Paris, France, you think, well, the Eiffel Tower, and look at how beautiful it is. And what you don't think of is this ugly monstrosity, which was a zoning failure. The city of Paris allowed this office tower to be built, and it just creates this visual blight. So, just something to think about. um, while we're trying to, fight this. Um, and then we're going to go into this Meadowbrook Airport. You could say, well, they don't really use the airport. People don't land their planes. We're talking about knocking down all of the trees right here, and the solar glare coming off of this. If someone were to land their plane, and they can land their plane, it would be like a little Cessna or something, or an ultralight plane. Um, if they went off course or whatever, they could crash, and you know, I don't know what. But it does create a danger to have big, massive solar field over here next to an airport. Is it's a safety risk. So, and it of course did happen in May of 2020, May of 2001. Someone crashed their plane trying to land there. Um, so then the next step would be, if they're not going to be using this airfield, it's all clear cut. Why do you need to clear cut all of this land and cram it down here towards the Birches neighborhood and closer to the waterways? Why wouldn't you use the northern portion, which already have plenty of cleared acreage? The justification for doing so doesn't really make a lot of sense. Yes, they need to get the power over all the way to Birch Meadow Road in order to get it onto a power line, but they could just as easily do that over here on Kimball Road. There is a roadway that runs all the way from Kimball Road in Amesbury, all the way across the top of the property, all the way to Bear Hill Road over here in Merrimack. Let's go into the solar panels. It's going to be 17,000 of these panels. The panels are made in China, and there is absolutely no way of knowing what they're made out of. The specification sheets just talks about the electrical specifications. I found the installation manual for them. And now these are just an example. They're not saying that they're going to use this specific panel. They're just saying something typical of this. And the reason why I bring it up is because this is typically what the solar panels are made out of. The composition of them is mostly glass, and then they have these other materials. But they could also have these other materials, and no one really knows if you break these panels, what where the materials will go and what will happen to them, and will they end up in the drinking water, or what could possibly happen. And the reason why I mention this is because there's plans possibly to put walking trails all along the side of the property. And when people get out in the woods, people tend to throw rocks at shiny objects. I don't want to characterize what kind of people those might be, but that is a possibility. It is a risk. And they also talked about creating all of these native pollinator mix underneath the panels, so that when the trees are gone, the water would be absorbed by all of these low-lying vegetation. And then, another risk is that there's really technically only two gates on this whole entire property. So any enterprising wildlife that happens to wander or make their way into the property, they would be trapped. They would be trapped. And if they can't survive on whatever this is, they would end up dying inside of this property. And they would be there, their carcass would be there for quite a while. So there's a risk. The other risk is fire. Now, this whole entire area was set on fire accidentally, and 100 of these very specific these acreages burned in September of 1926. This whole entire area was destroyed by fire. And the fire department was very limited on their ability to fight a fire in this area. There was no hydrants, or there's no water sources, so they would have to run hoses out into any of the available area, and pump the water into the area. And the other thing is, in the center of this whole property is somewhere in here is a lithium battery array and the power conversion system in order to convert all of these DC power panels into AC to get it out into the grid. So the risk of fire is very it really needs to be considered. And um, taking down all of these trees and creating um, this dead zone where wildlife cannot possibly get around. It's a stockade fencing and chain link fencing. They can't get around all of this area is a real risk. Um, so, like I say, it could be caught on fire. And Weston and Sampson has agreed is in their literature they have agreed to fully inspect twice a year, twice a year. And somehow there's 24/7 monitoring, but it doesn't really specify what kind of monitoring that could possibly be. But they would check to see if which panels are cracked or damaged twice a year. So these panels could be broken for many, many months, and those materials could be exposed to the elements for a really long time. They'd also inspect the stormwater system that is supposed to keep the water from going into any of the area waterways. They check that twice a year. And then there's the decommissioning plan, which basically at the expiration of the lease, it's a 25-year lease, so we're talking the year 2050. The Syncarpha or whoever owns it at that time would be going in and removing everything and then restoring it with native vegetation. But there's nothing to say if Syncarpha were to go belly up, there's supposed to be a bond agreement to restore the area. But there's nothing that says if the lease is terminated early, it's the expiration of the lease at 2050 or later. So there's no protections there. If Syncarpha were to go up, go belly up, and a lot of other solar power companies were to go up, and they were all insured by the same bonding company, then there would be no money to restore this and remove all of those panels. It is a severe risk there. Now, the more recent developments here are that the city um, is trying to remove this restriction to this area and widen up the area available for solar power to the whole entire city. And then the city would have to fight each particular solar development on their merits. Um, Widening the scope, allowing more solar in other areas that might be more suitable than in between in between and among all of the waterways. Um, this is an interesting sort of strategy. I'm not sure because then it relies on this being fought on. It's all in Zone B of the Water Resources Protection District, and that might be a hard sell. Um, but I have highlighted a couple other health and safety risks. The neighborhood has identified other health and safety risks. So there might be a way to fight it under this Dover Amendment restrictions. But the planning board did review all of the materials, and there's hundreds and hundreds of pages of materials, and they've come up with areas where there are deficiencies in various different sections of the site plan, and they've identified them, and they've opened this plan up for public debate at their February 10th next meeting. So where do we stand from here? That's the status of everything. We would like for everyone would like to be involved in this whole thing. We need to widen the scope of who knows about this and whose rights and um, rights might be affected by all of this development. So here's how you can get involved. Contact the Lake Attitash Association. Their email list will keep you informed about upcoming meetings. And if possible, you can come to the meetings and submit a speaker request form and give your side, give your argument. Again, everything has to be fought on specifically how this would affect the public's health, safety, and public welfare. All of your arguments have to be phrased in those terms in order for it to be helpful. And the city is really struggling with how they can fight this particular plan, what grounds they could use in order to stop it or modify it or protect our drinking water and our lake. And if you can't come to the meetings, you can submit a public comment to be read into the public record. And you can watch the proceedings on the Amesbury Community TV. I'm going to go ahead and if you're watching this video in YouTube, I'm going to have, if you click the More button down below the video, it should expand out and you should be able to see all of the footnotes for where I pulled all of this information from. So if you have any questions about whether I was sort of speaking out of hand or gave incorrect information, you can look at the source documents that I was working from. Please do. We need the involvement of more of the public to come to the meetings and provide your justification why this plan is not a particularly good spot for creating a solar field. Thanks again for watching to the end of the video, and I appreciate any sort of comments and concerns that you might think of from this. Thanks again.